Hello, beloveds, and welcome to the Black Mirror Oracle. Today, as I was scrying in the Black Mirror, I got one very distinct image, but it was very powerful. So, what I saw was a jester, like the old kind of like court jesters wearing the weird hat with the bells that are usually like two colors, maybe like red and white, or three colors, red, white, and yellow, or whatever. And then the hat has like three things coming off with bells on the end. And they've got those shoes with the bells on the end. And what I got was, I was getting the feeling of something I had read in the Sufi mystic Hafez. And he said something about like sowing divine chaos, because this jester was holding like a mask, the kind of mask that like is people hang on the wall, like that. Oh my gosh, like the arts masks, one is happy and one is sad, and whatever. It looked like that, but when he flipped it over, it was a mirror on the back. And so I was getting the feeling of the sowing divine chaos, because this jester made me think of the sacred clown archetype, or like and I think it's like Lakota Sioux or something. It's called like a Heyoka, which is actually like, I think, a lightning spirit or something. But it's meant to be this sacred clown archetype is meant to challenge the status quo by showing the opposite. So basically, whatever is acceptable by society but might be absurd, they would do the opposite of that to emphasize the absurdity of the other thing. So let's go ahead and pull our first card, because I was getting that feeling of the sowing divine chaos from this image from Hafez. I went ahead and used the Rumi deck, which is like Sufism. The lion and the deer. Oh, that's actually really interesting, because when you're really thinking about the idea of Heyoka, most people, how do I put this? Most people who think that they are lions, right? Most people who think that they are lions, that they're the tough stuff, and they're prancing around, bragging about how tough they are, bragging about being the tough stuff, bragging about being the lion. Those people are usually the deer, right? I know that sounds kind of weird to say, but like, if you're thinking of lions as being, powerful, and deer being kind of prey, it's usually the people who think that they are wolves who are actually the sheep, right? People who don't need to go around bragging about it, right? And so in this sense, like, I feel like this reflects the Heyoka idea of, pointing out this kind of thing to people. So let's go ahead and see this. This card has also been stalking us in the shadow position. A kid trapped in a music box, but all the music is broken. It's like there is no music left. So when I think of sowing divine chaos, I think of the ecstatic nature of the Sufi poets, the idea that, how do I, like, you get so connected to your higher self, you get so connected to this divine energy that nothing can stop your music. You are dancing in the fire. Rumi says, dance in the fire, dance in your own blood. Now, he doesn't mean that literally, but he just, obviously, don't hurt yourself. But like, he's saying that, like, if you within you are connected to that divine source, to yourself, your divine source, then you're going to move through life, and it's going to look chaotic. It's going to look crazy to other people. There's a meme or something I saw lately, and it was something like, you're dancing around and people who can't hear the music say you're crazy, right? But it's just because they can't understand. They can't see what you see. They don't experience what you're experiencing. And So sowing divine chaos to me is just being that level of authentic, whether other people think you're crazy or not. Because this Heyoka thing, this sacred clown idea, it's meant to reverse and challenge what is acceptable. It's meant to point out the absurdity in the systems in which we live. And so if you're called to this reading, you may already be living or being this archetype. Like you might, people around you might, just by you being your authentic self, might get insulted just by you being yourself. They might feel challenged. They might lash out at you. And it's not because you're doing anything wrong. It's because your presence naturally challenges the status quo. And that is, beloved, that is sowing divine chaos. It's a good thing. Okay. We always think of chaos as a bad thing. In this sense, chaos can be a very good thing. And it gives you your music back. And it removes the feeling that you are prey to these other people because you trust your familiar. You have control over your own life and you're unbothered by the absurdity, right? In fact, you feel at home in the absurdity because you see it clearly. So trust your familiar. I would say that's like trust your intuition, trust, animals have such instinct. If I were in a place and I suddenly saw a bunch of animals running to high ground, you better believe I'm going to be running to high ground, right? Animals know. So in saying trust your familiar, it's reminding you, maybe you have a familiar, a dog or a cat, and you trust their instinct. I know my dog, if my dog does not like a person, I'm not getting anywhere near that person because they know. But it's also saying that you have that instinct in you that's been covered up and stuff. And even if you look crazy to other people, living your word, living your weird is it. If you're in this reading, it might be your calling. I bet that you have a sense of humor that's very unique that a lot of other people don't get. It might even be a little more complex than a lot of people can quite get, all sense of humor is valid or whatever, but well, maybe not. I don't believe that, being at the expense of other people, but okay, so when I see this card, it cracks me up because I always get Pennywise vibes just because of the balloon. But that's just because I like scary movies. Okay. But really, I would say that you may have actually gained this a sacred clown, the person who, through being lighthearted and silly and things like that, is holding both a mask and a mirror to the world around you, right? You expose the masks because you're a mirror and people don't know how to deal with that. But I feel like you probably saw this in your life from an older person, or maybe it was something that's in your bloodline. And instead of seeing it as a curse, like you may have seen it in part of your life, you're starting to see that this is actually one of the coolest gifts that could actually be bestowed upon you because, well, like Jesse Wells says in a song, Will the Computer Love the Sunset? He says, I think that I might die from laughing at the infinite jest. When you start understanding the absurdity of life and then really living in this divine chaos energy, because human chaos is different, right? So human chaos is mostly manufactured, right? Divine chaos is the feeling that you're in the forest and everything is fluttering around and it feels like so much movement and there's bugs, but there's actually so much order. I heard a meteorologist say years ago that like nature abhors chaos and everything that nature does is moving back towards balance. Even this absurdist jester is moving back towards balance because the mirror and the mask are reflecting to the people around them how they are out of balance, right? So like, for example, lightning strikes to rebalance the atmosphere. A tornado forms to rebalance the atmosphere. Your house getting covered in vines and stuff is not chaos. It is nature trying to rebalance the space that you cleared out, right? Now, I'm not saying let your house be taken over vines, although that's very cottagecore. I love it. Okay. Slow and steady. Patience is key. Be patient with yourself through this, right? Because what I'm feeling is that you probably had this energy a lot when you were younger. And then society kept kind of putting you down for it or making you feel nervous or weird. And maybe you had a few friends who still let you kind of play out with it. But other than that, like, you know, oh, this is an acceptable kind of jokes in a workplace or whatever. And so you've probably been more of a mirror in the sense of, you've probably been more of a mirror in the sense of just reflecting people back, but you had to kind of drop the absurdist viewpoint or the surrealist viewpoint or the sacred clown viewpoint. And that's actually a really important part of your work, right? Is being able to point out that kind of absurdity. Sorry, my dog is barking. I'm just peeking out to see what's going on. Okay, I think she's okay. She's always barking. My Annie, my Andromeda is always interrupting my readings, but God, I love her. All right, so let's take a look at your tarot cards to kind of flesh out this idea. The Fool, you couldn't get a more perfect card, right? 7 of Cups starting us off here. Queen of Pentacles. Yeah, I feel like reflecting on what your sense of humor is, whether it's now or how it was when you were younger. 6 of Wands there. Oh, yeah. This is actually really, really incorporated into your personality. You're a very funny person and you're a very spiritual person. And when you put these two together, and like I said, you might not even feel like you're funny now. I bet you are. But you know, when you were a kid, you were funny. You could cut right to the chase of things, right? So with this Fool card, and 7 of Cups tells me that throughout this time, beloved, you were told over and over again, you were given these different visions of who you were supposed to be and what was acceptable and was not acceptable. You know, obviously in shadow work, we call that your shadow bag from Robert Bly. But you knew that you were meant to drink from the cup of something greater. You have a more complex way of thinking. And this Fool energy is beautiful for you in this context because the Fool is like a jester, right? The Fool is, people think of the Fool as being foolish, but the Fool is actually pure unmanifestation. This may be the wisest position, right? The unmanifest. In the tree of life, this is Keter. This is the unmanifest. This is the closest that you can get to the divine, right? So it just shows you that Heyoka, that sacred clown energy, it can run through a person who seems almost innocent, unburdened by the world. And that's because someone can have been through a whole lot, right? Here with the 7 of Swords energy, been betrayed. Emperor energy, been under the thumb of another person. But still maintain this feeling of awe and wonder because they understand the absurdity of existence. And they're able to mirror that back to other people without internalizing that cynicism, right? There's this great comic I saw one time, and it's like, oh, when I was younger, I was an idealist, and I just saw all the beautiful things in the world. And then I got older, I started seeing the rough edges and how bad things were, and I became a realist. And then as I got older, I became a surrealist, and things got really weird after that. And of course, in the surrealist picture, it looks like a Salvador Dali painting. You know, there's like a dripping clock and a train driving into the sky and, you know, just all sort of absurdities. Because really, if you take our weird human systems out of it, everything is really absurd. Right? But that's your power. You know, that's why you're here at this specific reading, because that is your power. You're just starting to get into understanding this, right? Seeing through clearly. You have this like balance of water and air with the cups, the Queen of Cups and the Queen of Swords. So cutting through people's crap, through being silly, pointing out the absurdities, and you don't even have to do this on purpose. It's not your job to sit behind the scenes and manufacture things to say back, but it's more like embodying this energy that is already in you will cause you to be so sharp about this, so precise about this naturally, because it is naturally who you are. And my candle went out over here, and you know, that doesn't always mean anything. You know, obviously, like, I guess the candle was lower than I thought it was. But if you feel like your spark has been put out, if you feel like that your comedy, your sense of humor has been dimmed, this is your invitation. This is your invitation, beloved, because I just feel such a playful, fun energy here. And with this victory card, 6 of Wands, all you have to do is decide to step back into this energy, and it's going to come so naturally, because it's not like it's something you have to train for. This is just who you are. So I think that you could practice in the sense of like, make sure you practice not holding back. Make sure you're, I mean, obviously don't be an asshole, but practice just being yourself and see what happens, right? And sometimes that takes a while because you have to uncover a lot of things. 0440. The gut feeling, intuition, betrayal, pessimism, relating, value, insight, increased perception, love, and monogamy. Follow your gut. It's more than just a feeling. Be real with people and focus on meaningful relationships. Remember, you also must bring to the table. Treat others with respect, or else karma will bite your ass. 3 is a crowd. Actually, what I get from this is the gut feeling is the most important part, along with betrayal, pessimism, because a lot of it, if you feel dimmed in this area in your life, it's because of betrayal trauma, right? And the gut feeling is that thing where it's like you might be in a situation where you want to say something and you hold back because you've been taught not to say it, but maybe what you were supposed to say is exactly what someone around you needed to hear, even if it, I'm not, like I said, I'm not saying be an asshole. Like I said, karma will bite your ass. Like, treat others with respect. But sometimes you do a disservice to others. I do a disservice to others, right? If you do spiritual bypassing, if you aren't holding people accountable. Now, it's not your job to teach people and to hold, but if you're in a situation and there's mistreatment going on, it is your responsibility to, safely as you can, be accountable, make them accountable. And I say this is my bad too, because I know in my personal relationships, I have definitely pushed that down and not held people accountable. And then you know what happens, right? Karma's a bitch. She will come back and, karma is just the consequences of your actions. And I've said this in a few videos lately, but basically, if you stand between a person and their karma, you absorb that and it even doesn't help them. So use your gut. It needs to be uncovered from all of the programming put on top of it so that you can actually hear the gut, because a lot of times you'll think that you're hearing your intuition, but it's just programming that's repeating, right? So my beloved jester, my beloved sacred clown, see the absurdity in life, sow your own divine chaos. And I would love to hear in the comments about this, about what you think sowing divine chaos means. What do you think Hafez meant by that? And how do you sow divine chaos in your life? I know I do by just being myself. Like, I will go out wearing what I want, looking how I want, and just that sows some divine chaos, because people will look at you and they're like, oh, I forgot that I was allowed to have fun. I forgot that I was allowed to dress the way that I want in my free time. I forgot that I can, wear 50 rings if I want, or whatever. And my dog is barking at the door now. So I'm going to go, beloveds. But thank you so much for being here. I'll see you next time.